we've come a long way since then, in which we're recognizing, okay, there are good fats, there are bad fats, but what's been left standing is this group of saturated fats, where we continue to put all saturated fats into like the naughty category. And we've now learned, we and others around the world know definitively that there is an absolute difference. Not all saturated fats are created equal, and that there are even chain and odd chain fatty acids. That's as fancy as I'm going to get, as sciencey as I'm going to get today. But we know that the even chain that have an even number of carbons, like C16 and C18, are pro-inflammatory, associated with a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and heart disease. But then there are these odd chain fatty acids, especially C15, which are not only beneficial, but meets this really rare criteria of being an essential fatty acid, making it the third essential fatty acid ever to be discovered. So we just needed the dolphins, all that data, and that the emergence of this discovery was just starting to happen in people. The dolphins just really helped kind of provide a very clean picture of the importance of C15. And then all of a sudden, like from an aha moment, once we understood what was happening in dolphins, you could go back to the human data, and you saw it was just starting to come to life.
Yeah. No, it's could be one of the biggest breakthroughs, as you said, in the last 90 years since the discovery of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, right?
That's right.
So 90 years ago. It's really remarkable. Are you trying to say that butter and whole fat milk got amnesty finally after so many decades?
I could tell from your tone you want me to say yes. Yeah, and I don't personally, I don't shy away from butter and moderate amounts of whole fat milk. They're a big push. For sure, like by far, our primary source of C15 as humans is from dairy fat. And it's such a reliable source of dairy fat that C15 used to be used as a biomarker of how much fat, dairy fat we ate. But they just didn't know that it was a beneficial fat. We know specifically how C15, its mechanism of how it lowers inflammation, and it helps with regard to support liver health and metabolic health. The best way to think about it is it's like our ultimate nature's balancer. It keeps things balanced. As we get older, our cells become fragile, our receptors don't work as well, and everything starts getting out of whack, right? We become imbalanced, and the aging process then basically accelerates from there. So it's meant to truly help us, like you said, it's an evolutionary trick to enable species to live longer. And so, great that the Navy wanted to lean into that, to be able to say, how can we put this to work to improve, human health even more?
Right. Well, and here's the name of your book, of course, the longevity nutrient, right? Because all of those processes that it gets support, so I typically prolong the life of the cells, prolong the life, of course, of the whole body.
So he said, let's test C15 against these molecules, and let's do it at 4 different concentrations, because you should also see what's called the dose-response effect, that as you put more, that the response goes up. So long story short, we were able to show that C15 had the most clinically relevant cellular benefits, 36, and then the next closest was rapamycin with 32. And when you step back, and you look at the molecules, they both C15 and rapamycin have are anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic, anti-cancer, antioxidant, and even antimicrobial. One of the first roles of rapamycin was that it was antifungal. So it's this kind of wonky mix of capabilities, but if you think about it, if you have those capabilities in your toolbox, you're going to live longer. And so it ends up, as we concluded in the paper, in addition to all the other, it targets hallmarks of aging and longevity pathways. And we talk about there's these 7 must-haves of a longevity molecule, not just this study. And I go through in the book But part of the conclusion is maybe we didn't need to go to Easter Island, to find a remarkable, longevity molecule. It's what every mammal gets from birth, which is C15. So, and it's safe. So much safer than a drug.
Cures, Remedies, and Beyond podcast with Dr. Arena, a Stanford-trained medical doctor, inventor, and a published author with over 30 years of clinical experience, is bringing together the science of medicine and the art of healing for ultimate vitality and health. It engages in discussions with healthcare providers, wellness experts, innovators, philosophers, spiritual and industry leaders, as well as health and wisdom seekers to provide you, the listeners, with practical tips and knowledge to help optimize your health and well-being. The Cures, Remedies, and Beyond podcast with Dr. Arena.
Our topic today is longevity and a newly discovered longevity nutrient, an essential fatty acid, so-called C15 or pentadecanoic acid. Don't try to repeat it fast. We have an incredible guest joining us, Dr. Stephanie Venn-Watson, a veterinary epidemiologist and public health scientist who leads groundbreaking work on C15, the first essential fatty acid discovered in 90 years or longer, a nutrient that could be key to improving cellular health, fighting aging, while possibly reversing some chronic illnesses with minimal side effects. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Stephanie.
Oh, Dr. Arena, it's wonderful to be here.
You have a remarkable career. You worked at WHO, the World Health Organization, U.S. Navy. You were a National Research Council associate with the Armed Forces Medical Intelligence Center. Your scientific and award-winning approach to improving human and animal health has been featured on NPR, BBC, National Geographic. You did a TED Talk in San Diego. You featured the New York Times, Washington Post. You have published numerous research articles on public health, metabolic research, and biotechnology, and have over 40 patents on the subject. And what I appreciate even more about you, Stephanie, is your incredible passion in helping people and our fellow animals age better and prevent chronic disease epidemic that we're dealing with currently, especially among younger population. So your research has uncovered the powerful role of C15, an essential odd-chain fatty acid that might hold the key to improving health span and longevity. But your work originated in a surprising place, studying the longevity and health of dolphins, my favorite animal, which led to this major breakthrough in human nutrition. So tell us, please, about this unique journey.
Right. It's amazing luck. And I feel very fortunate, Dr. Arena, of the opportunities that have been put before me. And a lot of thanks to, like you said, the dolphins. As a veterinary epidemiologist, I was recruited by the Navy about 20 years ago to continually improve the health and welfare of dolphins. And I thought, San Diego dolphins, this is great. So I thought I'd be there for a couple of years, ended up being there for 20. It's this amazing population of about 100, sustained population, about 100 bottlenose dolphins. They live in San Diego Bay, go out to the open ocean every day. Every day they choose to come back. So it's this incredible population of large-brained, long-lived mammals that we found over a decade of work, understanding that some dolphins age healthily, and other dolphins, as they get older, can develop something that sounds familiar, right? Like high cholesterol, chronic inflammation, even the full suite of changes consistent with Alzheimer's. So it was really a fascinating discovery.
Yeah, so that sounds like us, right?
Exactly, very human-like, these dolphins.
Well, that is really interesting. So, I understand that dolphins, since they were sort of like hired by U.S. Navy, right? So for specific purposes. So, and when they lived in wild, they lived 20 years plus minus. But then with the U.S. Navy, they actually surprisingly lived up to 50, even more potentially years, right, of age.
That's right. I mean, it really is remarkable how long they live. And it was only because the Navy had this growing population of geriatric dolphins that we were able to make these discoveries really over, half a century of Navy Navy dolphin health data that were collected. More importantly, we had not only the data on the health data on these dolphins, but they had the foresight of archiving the serum that was collected on these dolphins as part of their routine care. So we were able to go in, use this advanced technology called metabolomics, and it basically allowed us to look at thousands of small molecules present in the dolphin's archived blood, but also their all fish diet to see which small molecules predicted the healthiest aging dolphins. And, we thought it'd be omega-3s because all they eat are fish. And lo and behold, at the top of the list was C15, an odd chain saturated fat, like you shared, that I had personally never heard of.
To be honest, until you presented at our anti-aging longevity World Congress in Las Vegas last year, I have not even heard it. But I understand that there has been a lot of research, obviously, done on the subject. So, and I know that in some of your publications, you introduce the cellular stability hypothesis, right? So, which obviously proposes that this unique fatty acid, newly discovered fatty acid, is so integral in the stabilization and strengthening of those cell membranes. And you mentioning that this work was based on A.J. Hubert's cell membrane theory of aging, right? So, which is interesting because we do have so many different theories of aging. And, you were saying, of course, quoting that longevity is basically determined by the stability of those fatty acids in cell membranes. And also, pretty much all cell membranes, obviously, is a bilayered fat, right? So that is essential in protecting each cell and us as an organism from the lipid oxidation or peroxidation and slowing certain diseases, right? So, but tell us more. So I know that after working with the, because we will return to that longevity because it's absolutely remarkable nutrient that you really, presenting to the world and, so passionately really, educating the whole world about. So I really love that. So, and I just wanted to hear more some of your aha kind of moments when you started studying those dolphins, because I understand that completely changed your own understanding of what fat is. And I know you quoted the fat was always a dirty word. And I love that. So
This is true.
yeah, tell us.
Oh, this is great. So yeah, exactly. I mean, if you go back to, the early 1900s, 1929, 1930, it was believed back then, Dr. Arena, that all fats had no nutritional value. All they did was add calories and that there was no really beneficial activities of fats. We've come a long way since then in which we're recognizing, okay, there are good fats, there are bad fats, but what's been left standing is this group of saturated fats where we continue to put all saturated fats into like the naughty category. And we've now learned, we and others around the world know definitively that there is an absolute difference. Not all saturated fats are created equal, and that there are even chain and odd chain fatty acids. That's as fancy as I'm going to get, as sciencey as I'm going to get today. But we know that the even chain that have an even number of carbons, like C16 and C18, are pro-inflammatory, associated with a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and heart disease. But then there are these odd chain fatty acids, especially C15, which are not only beneficial, but meets this really rare criteria of being an essential fatty acid, making it the third essential fatty acid ever to be discovered. So we just needed the dolphins, all that data, and that the emergence of this discovery was just starting to happen in people. The dolphins just really helped kind of provide a very clean picture of the importance of C15. And then all of a sudden, like from an aha moment, once we understood what was happening in dolphins, you could go back to the human data, and you saw it was just starting to come to life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, could be one of the biggest breakthroughs, as you said, in the last 90 years since the discovery of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, right?
Right.
So 90 years ago. So, and that you are mentioning that C15 is an essential fatty acid, right? So, could you briefly explain, like, what makes it essential?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, in order to be an essential fatty acid, this means it's a nutrient that our bodies must have at certain levels in order for us to just maintain our baseline physiological health. And if we don't have enough of it, our bodies, and in this case, our cells, literally will become more fragile and fall apart. And another critical component of an essential fatty acid is that our bodies can't make enough of it on their own, that we have to get certain amounts from the diet in order to achieve levels that are required to maintain that baseline health. So the dolphins were able to show us a very specific phenotype, or what's called the pathophysiology of a nutritional deficiency syndrome. And once we started being able to test that in the lab, dolphins aside, go ahead and move C15 into the lab, we were able to demonstrate and show that indeed nutritional C15 deficiencies cause, like you mentioned, the cellular fragility syndrome, and putting that C15 back into our bodies, into our cells, literally just shores them back up to help make them stable again. It's when you think about vitamin C deficiency and scurvy and vitamin D deficiency and rickets, it's just such a simple discovery that was waiting. We just needed a fresh perspective from a very clean population to help bring that to light.
Wow, that is really remarkable. Are you trying to say that butter and whole fat milk got amnesty finally after so many decades?
I can tell from your tone you want me to say yes. Yeah, and I don't personally, I don't shy away from butter and moderate amounts of whole fat milk. They're a big push are for sure, like by far our primary source of C15 as humans is from dairy fat. And it's such a reliable source of dairy fat that C15 used to be used as a biomarker of how much dairy fat we ate. But they just didn't know that it was a beneficial fat. So, the problem has been that as we've decreased our intake of dairy fats, especially in the US since 1977, we were specifically told all Americans should decrease their intake of whole dairy fat and butter. And when we did that, we did decrease our intake of these pro inflammatory saturated fats, but we threw the baby out with the bathwater, and our C15 levels have been declining dramatically since the 1970s. And then in the 1990s, recommendations even doubled down, in which pediatricians started telling parents of babies that had a family risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes that those babies should have no exposure to whole fat milk throughout their young lives. So we're still what we're encouraging is, given the data and all the studies, 100 plus studies, including a lot around infant development and cognitive development and the importance of C15, we're really just trying to get the conversation going. Like, there's too much science out there on C15. You just can't explain it away anymore. So we need to sit around the table and figure out how do we need to, how can we fix this problem?
Right, right. And as you mentioned that the U.S. government gave us this, directive to basically eat less fat, right? So, but the main, I guess, reason for that was the heart diseases, right? So there was a growing number of heart attacks, etc. So, but I understand that reading, some of your research and etc. So that according to a study published in 2015. Eating less fat was actually proven to affect heart health, right? So, and just cause necessarily all this, the cause and effect basically chain was not quite reliable and potentially wrong.
Yeah, I mean, what's been difficult is when we were told to stop eating fat, it got replaced with sugar. Like, you remember the Snackwell cookies in which it was like everyone started eating those green, packaged cookies because it said no fat, but they were chock full of, carbs and sugar. And so we switched out something that was, wasn't as bad for something that was much worse. And so now we're trying to figure out with regard to, again, kind of following the natural order of things that when mammals are young, every mammal gets dairy fat. It has every mammal drinks milk at birth. So this tells us that evolutionarily mammals are intended to get milk, not non-fat milk, not low-fat milk throughout to support their development. Conversely, no other mammals eat dairy products. When they get older, we do that. And again, like I said, I don't shy away from it. But one reason why the Navy invested 10 years of studies on this work, on our work, was to say, hey, can we find a way to understanding that milk fat has over 400 fatty acids and only 1% of those fatty acids are C15, and they're competing with 40% of pro inflammatory saturated fats. The Navy challenged us with saying, is there a way that we can take just C15 and be able to provide that as an optimized nutrient for beyond our childhood years, so that it didn't have to compete with these other fats? And so that was the science and task that we took on over a 10-year period.
Wow, that is really so simple, right? So why would you ever have thought about it? Which is always a beauty, so they find this amazing discoveries. And so you're saying that the I guess the most concentrated sources of C15 are dairy fat, so like like the butter, the yogurts, or all the things that for years have been considered to be not necessarily healthy. So, but now the most important thing is the ratio. So, how much fatty acids actually, yeah, in this product. So, and if you need to increase your concentration, right? So, in your own body, so you will be increasing the concentration of those pro-inflammatory, really not healthy fatty acids as well. So, meaning like, finding some other supplementation sources, obviously a key to change that ratio without harmful effects of the negative side effects of those. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way of putting it. And then in addition, we're, also understanding the impact of, industry changes within the dairy industry, that we now know that if a cow is fed grass, it has twice as much C15 in it as a cow that's fed corn. So there are, I think, the supplement is part of the solution because like you said, it provides only the good fat and not the bad fats. And so that's one part of the solution. In addition, like you said, we could help change those ratios in being able to have the dairy industry report how much C15 is in their product versus C16. And that then will allow, like if I was a consumer, I would go pick the butter that had the highest C15 level in it. And we could drive demand for, the dairy fat products that have the highest C15. So looking for multiple solutions for this problem.
And you also, I remember we mentioned that our gut microbiome can produce some of it, correct?
Yeah, this has been really fascinating work that's been coming out from different teams, independent from us. And there was one really interesting study where they wanted to understand how fiber helps in a mouse model of fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes because it was helping. There was a study that was repeated multiple times. And so they dove in and they showed, oh, fiber contains a molecule called inulin, and it was inulin that was responsible for the benefit. And then they dove in even further and they found out that the inulin was being fed to specific microbes in the gut, and the microbes were using inulin to make C15. And in the end, it was the C15 that was being made by these microbes that explained almost all of the benefit. So there's, again, our bodies are trying to find ways so we can produce some C15 at the gut level. It's just not enough to get us up and over that deficiency line, but we definitely can find ways to leverage it, like eating. Here's yet another reason to eat fiber, right? Is to help with our C15 production.
Oh, that is really remarkable. So, and I know that you wrote upcoming book, The Longevity Nutrient. So, which I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, we'll have to make sure to get you. Yeah, we'll get you a book. Yeah, yeah.
Major, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to. We'll make sure that you get. This is. I think this is one of the first ones. We just got our first box, so we'll make sure you get one.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. So, but I've been taking your supplement. I have to say. So,
Oh, it's good.
and yeah, even though I've been only taking it for, I would say, like maybe 3.5 weeks. So it was really interesting. Like I noticed some effects on like my mind. Which I didn't expect. Right. So I felt like a little crisper.
Yeah.
So and calm at the same time. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, we had these, we call them delights and surprises in which, something that the dolphins couldn't tell us as far as like, I'm sleeping better and my mind, like I have less brain fog. And when we came out with Fatty 15 in 2021, we had people starting to share these stories, Dr. Similar things where it's like, I'm just like, I'm feeling better. I have calmer mood. My sleep is better. I'm thinking clearer. And, we thought, to be honest, at the time, we thought, well, gosh, it's got to be placebo effect. And then I started feeling those benefits myself. And then the research continued. And that's when we discovered that our bodies use C15 to make a second molecule called a metabolite, and it's called pentadecanoic carnitine, or PDC. And we published this work back in 2022, I believe, and showed that this molecule fully activates the cannabis receptors. It's both CB1 and only the second ever to be discovered that is naturally made by our body. So it means that we were meant to get C15 not only for these long-term cellular benefits, but also probably to make this metabolite to help with our mood and sleep. And so it was like I said, a wonderful surprise. About half of our customers report feeling that within 2 weeks.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's just like, we all, of course, studied that our own body produces endogenous opioids, right?
That's right.
And endorphins and caffeines, right? So, and this is one of those natural endocannabinoid systems.
That's right.
It supports. Wow, that is really impressive, I have to say. So, I mean, since we're talking about the positive benefits, so this unique supplement, so can you tell us exactly, so like how does it work? What systems, I know, of course, that it affects pretty much every single organ system in our body, right? So our immune health, our inflammation, mitochondrial function, all of the. So, but yeah, what is the exact mechanism of action of this unique chain fatty acid?
Right. It's remarkable how much this little single 15 carbon chain does. But this is what nature does. When it has an essential fatty acid or a vitamin, it finds ways to put it to work. So it does a lot of different things. We know that C15 plays a core role, as you had mentioned, in strengthening our cell membranes and preventing them from attack by oxygen, lipid peroxidation, and breakdown. So that's a core role that C15 plays in sustaining our long-term health. And then it does a bunch of other stuff. Like you mentioned, we found that it targets multiple receptors. Things like it activates PPAR alpha delta, it activates AMPK and AKT, and inhibits mTOR and JAK-STAT. And all those acronyms just add up to, we know specifically how C15, its mechanism of how it lowers inflammation, and it helps with regard to support liver health and metabolic health. The best way to think about it is it's like our ultimate nature's balancer. It keeps things balanced. As we get older, our cells become fragile, our receptors don't work as well, and everything starts getting out of whack, right? We become imbalanced, and the aging process then basically accelerates from there. So it's meant to truly help us, like you said, help. It's an evolutionary trick to enable species to live longer. And so, great that the Navy wanted to lean into that to be able to say, how can we put this to work to improve, human health even more?
Right, right. Well, and here is the name of your book, of course, the longevity nutrients, right? Because all of those processes that it gets support, so I typically prolong the life of the cells, prolong the life, of course, of the whole body. So, and talking about, of course, longevity, so since you're one of the now world leading, researchers in that field, so tell us more your thoughts on the longevity, so why do we want to live longer, or do we?
Right. I know it sounds like a silly question, right? But it's a very important philosophical one. And it's I'd say, up until recently, maybe 50% of the people that I would talk to, Dr. Reno, is to say like, "Oh, how are you interested in longevity?" Like, and half of them would say their automatic response is no. And and it's because when they're thinking of longevity, they're thinking about living with illness longer and being alone, and that being older for longer is not something that they want. And so, the importance of C15 and the work we've done, like with Dr. Nicholas Short, who's head of NIH's Longevity Consortium, Nick and I wrote this paper together showing that C15 is a leading longevity molecule. And what got Nick so excited is he said this is a molecule that provides tangible benefits within months, things that your doctors care about. He goes, and that's how we're going to improve longevity is by improving how long we can be healthy, right? That health span, slow the onset of chronic diseases so that we can enjoy a long life, not just live longer, but have it be enjoyable. And you're like a question I love asking people, I'll ask you, which is if you had 2 extra hours a day, guilt free, you weren't guilty about not working, what would you do with that extra time? What would you do with that 2 hours a day?
Oh, 2 hours, extra 2 hours. Oh my gosh. I mean, the first thing comes is creativity, so I just want to have a little bit more time to, do some creative work, so writing, well, painting, so another thing.
Oh, I love that. I love and that and that's what we're the goal of a true longevity molecule, what we call a geroprotector, is something that does exactly that. It gives you more time, and it gives you more time to be able to do what you love doing. We're hit with this really like kind of cruel act of nature, which is when we're young and we're physically able to do lots of things, we have no time. And then when we get older and we have time, we lose the physical ability to be able to do things we love to do. And so, again, that's where Nick just got so excited about C15, in which he's like, this is something that can actually give us more meaningful time to do the things we love to do. We should be celebrating getting older because then we now finally we have time to to do the things we love. And so it's a gift that again the dolphins have given us, which is wonderful.
Yeah, well, that's really amazing. So, and what really amazed me is that, well, at least, 515, which is your supplement that you and your friend and partner, Dr. Eric, have
Right.
founded. So, which is really um, impressive undertaking. And I understand you've been doing it for over a decade now. So it's not just a recent path, so that is phenomenal. Yeah. So I guess what I wanted to ask you is in terms of the ingredients. So it was so simple, and you do manufacture it. I understand. So, but the like literally two ingredients is one is a nutmeg and another one is a coconut oil derivative. Is that this flavor?
So it's like, yeah, exactly. So we, in order to make this, and when we were first developing C15, we were developing it as a drug. We thought, the whole point was to create a drug that could help with fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is now called MASLD, metabolic associated steatotic liver disease. I think I got dysfunction associated that, or MASLD.
Which is like also an epidemic proportion, right? So
Yeah.
they almost like every third person has that. That is so so remarkable, and people don't even know that they have it. Sometimes it's an accidental finding.
So you're finding it when you're like, see your patients, you do the blood work, and then all of a sudden you see these liver enzymes that are up, and that's exactly it. So this was a disease that, was first detected by doctors or first reported by doctors at the Mayo Clinic in 1980. And that was the first 20 patients. And they said, this is strange. Their livers look like they drink a lot of alcoholic liver disease, but they have no history of high alcohol consumption. And that was 1980. Fast forward to today, just like you said, over 1 in 3 people have this fatty liver disease. It's the number one cause of liver transplants, of hepatocellular carcinoma, of liver cancer, number one cause of cancer in children. And we're seeing this pop up in kids, 1 in 10 kids globally. So we were seeing fatty liver disease popping up in the dolphins at the same time. And again, because the dolphins are such a clean population, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they're same socioeconomic status. We were able to quickly get down to the cause of fatty liver disease in the dolphins was nutritional C15 deficiency. And now, we were working with Dr. Jeff Schwimmer, he's opened the first fatty liver disease clinic for children in the world. And he happened to be here in San Diego. And Jeff reached out when we reported fatty liver disease in dolphins. And he said, I don't think it's the same as what we're seeing in people. And he went and looked at liver slides from dolphins. And I'll never forget, he sent an email and he said, we are a go. He's like, this is the exact same. He's like, so this isn't sugar for dolphins because they don't. So he's like, you're completely blowing my mind. So we've worked in parallel over the last 10 years, and Jeff just finished a clinical trial that he published last year showing that when young adults with a history of fatty liver disease take C15 supplementation, that if they got up and over the definition of nutritional deficiency, he saw a decrease in the liver enzymes indicative of improved liver function. So a really exciting time with regard to helping to get this back, which, got me back to, so we wanted to make a pure C15 ingredient that was pharma grade, that then, and we kept it that way. And the way we make it is it's vegan friendly as well, that we get C14, which is readily abundant in plants like nutmeg and coconut, but it's a pure plant-based C14, and we add a carbon onto it. And that way it's more than 99% pure ingredient that just goes straight to work.
That is really remarkable, I have to say. So especially that I know that you had this additional study. You did the biomap, right? So, and you basically compared several geoprotectors, right? So that we all know they're, of course, called longevity molecules, and some people might not hear about, but those are prescription medications, of course, like rapamycin, metformin, or some others. And of course, we know as medical doctors that rapamycin has been used for the specific, after the transplant surgeries, right? So to prevent the rejection actions. So,
right.
And it's, something that has been discovered that the Easter Island, those microbes have been producing this substance that now has been, prescribed for the longevity, right? So, and has pretty good track record, but it is a medicine. I mean, it is obviously used to be like such a serious medicine, So, but tell us more about that biomap. So, and how does the fatty 15 compared to the leading, longevity candidates?
Right. So Nick, so then that's where Nick, Dr. Shork, really started leaning in. And he's like, gosh, Steph, he's like, I'm watching like all these studies and all of the support for C15. He goes, I think it's a geroprotector. And so he's like, it's the holy grail of healthy aging and longevity. And he said, let's put it head to head, test it against rapamycin, metformin, and then one other molecule called a carbose. That's in the longevity, leaderboard. And so, and the best way to test it for activities was this panel called Biomap. And it's 12 human cell systems that mimic various disease states. They measure 148 different biomarkers, and it's run by a third party. So this panel biomap is used routinely by the pharmaceutical industry to be able to screen molecules and have it predict the activities, clinically relevant activities it will do. So it will predict this molecule will behave as an antidepressant, or this molecule may help with lung disease. So, and it is remarkably good at its predictions. So he said, let's do test C15 against these molecules, and let's do it at 4 different concentrations, because you should also see what's called a dose response effect, that as you put more, that the response goes up. So long story short, we were able to show that C15 had the most clinically relevant cellular benefits, 36. And then the next closest is rapamycin with 32. And when you step back, right? When you step back and you look at the molecules, they both C15 and rapamycin have are anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic, anti-cancer, antioxidant, and even antimicrobial. One of the first roles of rapamycin was that it was antifungal. So it's this kind of wonky mix of capabilities. But if you think about it, if you have those capabilities in your toolbox, you're going to live longer. And so it ends up, as we concluded in the paper, in addition to all the other, it targets hallmarks of aging and longevity pathways. And we talk about there's these 7 must-haves of a longevity molecule, not just this study. And I go through in the book. But, the part of the conclusion is maybe we didn't need to go to Easter Island, to find a remarkable, longevity molecule. It's what every mammal gets from birth, which is C15. So, and it's safe. You're so much safer than a drug. And so it's just like really fun paper and study to put out.
Wow, that is so impressive, I have to say. 56 cellular benefits. And so actually outperformed rapamycin. So that's really incredible. So, and you also found that C15 tends to be even stronger than omega-3 fatty acids, or usual type of derivative, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
and so you also did the same kind of biomapping, and that's how you found that people who want to have specific effects that were well described with omega-3 fatty acids, so they can actually achieve almost like, easier and faster with this supplement, right?
Exactly. That's right. And when we're still working our way through the essential fatty acid world, omega-3 and omega-6 were, the categories of the first 2 discovered essential fatty acids. And, we understand that the omega-3 is this polyunsaturated fatty acid, and it has a lot of double bonds in its structure. So that's what helps. Think of those double bonds as hinges. And so it helps the molecule be flexible, which is great to have in our cell membranes to keep our cells flexible. But those double bonds are also susceptible to attack by oxygen, which causes lipid peroxidation. What we know often is rancidity, like in the bottle. Like you open up a fish oil supplement bottle and sometimes it smells really fishy. That's that oxidation process. C15, so it's more like a yin and a yang, in which C15's role is not only, to have the cellular benefit, a lot of anti-inflammatory benefits of omega-3, but it also serves this complementary role of helping to shore up the cell membrane and protect it against lipid peroxidation. So to make the cell more resilient. So it's almost like you need that flexibility plus the resilient strength. Yeah, it's stability. There you go. And so they work together, but it's just we've got to get that ratio right, and we just it's about having the quality of that omega-3 be as high as possible. Getting it from fish, which is where I get my omega-3s, is is the easiest ways to get it where it hasn't been extensively exposed to oxygen.
But you're still not necessarily advocating against like combining, for example, omega-3 with C15.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the way I look at it is, if we had discovered vitamin E, and we wouldn't say don't take vitamin A, but it's more about and it's more about individuals and their experience. There's some people that if you are taking omega-3s and you're doing well on them, you can add in fatty 15 and C15 as complementary. There are a lot of people who can't take fish oil supplements just because the pill size, the fish burps, and they just don't take it, or they don't. And so fatty 15 is, C15 is a good way to at least get some of that coverage of the benefits of C15 plus a lot of those, again, very specific cellular benefits. But if people are taking omega-3s under their doctor's supervision and they have a history of heart disease, you should keep taking those omega-3s. So I will put that plug in.
Omega-3 fatty acids, of course, can actually loosen the blood a little bit, right? So
that's right.
Which can be quite beneficial for cardiovascular health, etc. So, but do you know if C15 has also this effect?
It has some anticoagulant activities, and but it's not as strong as omega-3. So, for example, there's not evidence that if you have normal platelet values, like the sticky cells, that can cause coagulation or overcoagulation. That there's not an indication that C15 takes a normal state and then makes your blood thinner. It's more like if you have too many sticky platelets, it helps to bring it to normal. So it's complementary, but omega-3 can be so powerful that it can actually, take a normal state and make your blood even thinner, which in most cases is beneficial. But it's another reason why, like before you have surgery, a doctor will say, take a break from your omega-3.
Yes.
Yeah, because of that really powerful effect.
But yeah, before doing procedures for my patients, I always, I have it in writing, so you have to stop it at least, 3-5 days prior. I'm talking about omega-3. So, but this, the fatty 15s might not necessarily require that, right? So, that's right. Those benefit. I mean, reading, several of your published articles, and you've published a lot, I have to say, very impressive. So, I mean, it's really like, practically, you found the holy grail type of level, so because reading the benefits of this C15, it has effects, which I know is in your website. Of course, you have specific scientific publications through the discoverc15.com, right? So yeah,
that's right.
I've seen a lot of different unique articles, and just to see that the amount of positive effect is just unbelievable. Metabolic health, so helping, of course, with the glucose control, type 2 diabetes, so heart disease, so it's just vascular health, liver health, which we briefly mentioned, the immune health, red blood cell health with stabilization, of course, of the membranes, healthy aging, brain health, improved sleep, controlled appetite, mood. And actually, interestingly enough, so I did, until I read it, I wasn't sure if it's the effect of the supplement that, I've been experimenting thanks to you. So then I actually felt that, that my appetite was actually so decreased, so I was able to do, because I like to do, between 13, 16 hours intermittent fasting.
Great.
So,
yeah.
And here I just noticed that, it went to, over 18 without me feeling any hunger, so, and I'm like, what was different, so I was so curious, and I'm like, I know that what I took, and I took 3, so I've been experimenting with the 1 capsule versus 2 versus 3, so, and talking with your team, talking to your advisors, like, let me experiment with a higher dose, more therapeutic dose. So, and so I really was surprised.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, I have the same thing where, like, Dr. Rena, I've always, like, I have constant hunger. Like, that's just part of who I am. It's like, if I'm not eating, I'm hungry. And it's just this constant feeling that's there. And when I started taking it, I had that same experience where I felt like I was missing an arm, like a part of me, because I'm like, I'm not feeling hungry. And this is not something I've ever had. And so it was almost like a jarring feeling of, where's my hunger? Like, and so, but, and I eat, so then I'll eat, and then I also may not eat as much as I do normally, but it did help me. It has helped me eat healthier. It's not intended as a weight loss drug. It's not, we don't sell it that way, but it is an interesting effect that it has. That is that a lot of people feel, that is again very clear effect of fatty 15.
Well, I have to say, it's a wonderful, side effect, if it is a side effect.
That's right. It's like, again, a delight. We'll call it delight surprise. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Because, there was a certain level of liberation, so I was more productive, so my mind was actually firing on all cylinders, so, and then I forgot eating and I didn't even remember until the evening, so it was, wow. So, yeah, I'm not saying that you should compete with all this GLP-1 agonists, but
Yeah.
after reading, so the side effects, with GLP-1, which I hope, everybody, whoever is, planning to take should read, so, or go to one of my episodes, so in the past we discussed it, so I was a little bit concerned, so, and I know a lot of people, might benefit from it, but there is a huge list of side effects that people absolutely have to be aware of before they start it. So,
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's we're still learning so much about, these GLP-1 agonists. They provide a lot of hope. But like you said, we have to step carefully, and we're just learning a lot quickly because so many people have been using it. So thank you for sharing all of that.
yeah, well, and especially like, what you are trying, of course, to lead with, is a long-term effect, right? So the longevity
Mhm.
and the long-term benefit versus, immediate gratification and immediate perhaps effect, so, but then there are certain reversals of certain, like weight loss, etc. So that had been noticed and all of that. So yeah, I just want people to have an informed decision when they, start undertaking certain, therapeutic actions, I have to say. So, and one thought I had also about, so if I remember correctly, you mentioned at the conference during your wonderful presentation, I have to say. So, um, or maybe I read it in one of your publications. I can't recall the GI benefits. So that is it right that you mentioned that it also the C15 so could potentially improve the leaky gut or gastrointestinal permeability syndrome. Is that correct?
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 papers that came out very close together, from, independent teams, not us, just this last year. And it's really exciting work. What they've shown in now 3 different models of mice, with inflammatory bowel disease and leaky gut. And this is where the lining of our gut, just like it sounds, becomes leaky, and things that go through our intestines that aren't supposed to get into our bodies. And when that happens, it's not just inflammation at the gut level. It's part of this whole epithelial barrier hypothesis, which says that, if our barriers in our gut, our skin are not intact and healthy, it's allowing things into our body that shouldn't be there. And that is setting us up for systemic inflammation and response and exposures to toxins that are speeding up our aging process. And so I was super excited to see that in these studies, they were able to show that C15 effectively closed that leaky gut and stopped the absorption of, they measured this thing called LPS, which is an indicator of bacteria sneaking across that leaky gut, and showed that C15 decreased that. There was less inflammation in the gut as well, and helped with these models of inflammatory bowel disease. So they're early studies, they're in models, animal models, but really promising. And it makes sense if you understand C15's job is to help stabilize and, the cells. The fact that it would do that in the gut lining, makes a lot of sense. And there is a clinical trial, a controlled clinical trial that was done in Singapore that showed that women who took C15 supplementation for 12 weeks, that they had improved growth of this bacteria called Bifidobacterium adolescentis. And this microbe, which I didn't know well, but the microbial world was like, what? This is great. And it ends up, it's like this mama microbe that is primarily responsible for healthy metabolism and has even been shown to extend longevity in worms, like just that bacteria. So it's, again, C15 has nature has evolved for us to effectively use this essential nutrient in many different ways. And it's what's been exciting is every couple of weeks, just waiting to see, the other outside world of scientists, what they're finding when they look at C15.
Right, right. So, and that is that it basically helps to decrease the inflammation, low grade inflammation. So, and of course, we know that the hallmark of aging is basically inflammaging and age related diseases linked to that inflammation. And is that through the like blocking of the inflammatory um, cytokines or mediators like IL-6, TNF-alpha, and some others? Or how does it exactly exhibit that unique effect, and especially for the inflammatory bowel disease, which is really hard to treat?
Yeah, you hit the perfect cytokine. So yeah, that it's been shown in multiple studies, including ours, in a dose response fashion that C15 is effective at lowering things like IL-6, TNF alpha, MCP1 is another big one that it lowers, it is responsible. Those three are responsible for, or at least heavily involved in, just name your chronic disease, and you can find a paper showing the role of these cytokines. It lowered 18 different pro-inflammatory cytokines in a dose response fashion. So it has these broad effects. We think that a lot of it has to do due to its a demonstrated ability to be a JAK-STAT inhibitor, as well as activating PPARs alpha and delta. So all three of those mechanisms are known to be anti-inflammatory and to help calm an overactive immune system.
Wow, that is really remarkable. So, and as you mentioned, there are multiple leading universities, Mayo Clinic, I mean, you name it, they're now studying it. So, and I pulled actually a lot of papers, so on beneficial effects of C15, aside from, your bibliography, which is incredible, so, and, me being musculoskeletal specialist and, regenerative, non-surgical orthopedic specialist, so I found it interesting to find an article about that the C15 actually inversely correlated with joint degradation and synovitis or inflammation inside of the joint, right? So, and wound healing as well. So, meaning the higher amount, and concentration of C15 in your blood, the more you're protecting your own joints, right? So, from degradation and degeneration and arthritis. So, I mean, it's like you just name the organ system and it's already here published, so and with it's just absolutely remarkable. Also, it brings me to the next question, if you don't mind, Stephanie, that the dose, right? So you guys have suggested few different dosages, but I mean, what do you suggest people to start with or maintain, or do something else for the potential reversal of certain chronic illnesses that people already have?
Yeah, so we always recommend people start with 1 capsule a day, and because mainly because so that's about 100 milligrams. That we find that most people either see or feel the benefits of the supplementation, even at this dose, at 1 capsule dose, 72% within 16 weeks. So that's pretty good. Those are pretty good odds. So we say start with that. If within 3 months you're not feeling or seeing benefits, and by seeing I mean going to your doctor. So before you start Fatty 15, go get your blood work done, your CBC, chems, liver enzymes, red blood cell panel, just your basic tests that Dr. Arena that you would give to your patients, and then go and do your blood work again at 3 to 6 months after reliably taking Fatty 15 for daily. And that will give you a good evaluation of how it's working for you. If you're not seeing anything and you have abnormalities, because we have some people that are just super duper healthy, and it's kind of hard to be like, how do I improve upon you being really, really healthy already? Then it's more about, are you feeling the benefits? But if you have abnormalities specific to metabolic disease or dyslipidemia or high cholesterol or um, anemia or things like that, and you're not seeing an improvement, then you could increase your dose and see how, just like you're doing, you're experimenting, that there are a good number of people that have see substantial benefits when they go up to 2 capsules. But we don't recommend people jump into it, because if they're going to get the benefits with one, that's great, and to let them kind of start on that journey. There is a test for C15. So doctors can request get C15 levels on fatty acid panels. More and more fatty acid panels are including them. And we know that we need to have at least 0.2% of C15 inner cell membranes to maintain that stability. The issue is that most of us are like at 0.2%. So we're right on that cliff of fragility syndrome, cellular fragility syndrome. If we look at folks like in Sardinia that live a long time, their C15 levels are 2 to 3 times higher than that. So they're zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6. So the goal is to try to get not be right on that cliff and step back further. So testing could be helpful if you're not seeing or feeling benefits within a couple months. You can kind of see where you're at C15 level wise.
Oh, and pretty much all laboratories now can measure the level?
It's increasing. You still have to look. I'd say it's maybe 50-50 that, a lab will offer fatty acid panel, and then when you go in and look, C15 may or may not be included. We partnered with Genova Diagnostics for an at-home blood spot test. So they have a physician laboratory test, a panel, and then in addition, now they have an at-home blood spot test. So I did that. I used that test, and yeah, proud to say I have a C15 of 0.46. So
Oh, I love
yeah, uh, a little bit of cheese, a little fatty 15. You gotta mix it up there.
Wow, that is fantastic. Yeah. So I can't wait to have your book in my hands, So, and is your book primarily for the doctors or just for general population?
It's a great question. So it is written like a kind of like a scientific discovery adventure story of how did this all come to be, and obviously starting with the dolphins, and how then really this fascinating journey of C15 science, for then it was us, but then the rest of the world, and then this group in Japan discovers this, and this group in Thailand discovers that. And so it's really meant to unfold as a story, but also has lots of science, but hopefully told in a way that is very approachable and understandable and enjoyable and meaningful. It's the hope is provides this movement of around C15 that we just can't explain it away anymore. We've got to bring C15 to the table. We have to be talking about it. And then selfishly, I hope that it can inspire people to say, like, gosh, like I was a dolphin veterinarian taking care of dolphins, and this big purpose landed in my lap, and I got to run with it, and it's been an incredible journey. So I hope that it inspires others, that those moments will come in your life, and you know it when it hits, and to just grab it by the reins and enjoy the ride, dips and all. Is I hope that inspires others to do that too.
Oh, wow. What a great work. And I understand that some of the proceeds, from the supplement goes back to Navy and goes back to helping those dolphins to live longer.
That's right. I mean, we better keep taking care of that wonderful population. Yeah, and they're getting fatty 15 as well. So there's multiple benefits to those dolphins. We owe them a lot.
Right, right. Are they taking the same 515s?
They are.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Slightly bigger dose, but yeah.
Wow, that is so remarkable what you have been doing. I really, really appreciate you talking to us. It was such a pleasure. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge, Stephanie.
Oh, Dr. Rena, is wonderful talking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, we hope we'll bring you sometime, soon for the newer updates because looks like, the research is really exponentially, pounding the number of articles about the beneficial effects, So like I recently even read about, benefits for, cancer prevention and, adjunct therapy. So it's really remarkable.
It's amazing. We're glad that we're not alone anymore. Lots of the world has joined in, and it's been great.
Right, right. Well, thank you again. Yeah, Dr.
Oh,
Stephanie.
thank you. Thanks, Dr. Arena. And I'll make sure not to. It looks like we're actually pretty close in uploading, but I'll make sure not to turn it off.
And how by the way, our listeners can find you? So we're gonna list, of course, all your links in the episode description. But if you don't mind, maybe voice the easier links.
Sure. Yeah. So people can learn more at all the peer-reviewed science on C15, as you had mentioned, at discoverc15.com. And our supplement, Thank You Navy, is available at fatty15.com. So you can learn more about that. And you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you wanted to reach out and say hi, and then the longevity nutrient is from Simon & Schuster and available wherever books are sold.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks again, Stephanie.
Great. Thank you. This is such a pleasure. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for Cures, Remedies, and Beyond, exploring science and the wisdom of health and healing. We hope to see you next time.
This podcast represents the personal views and opinions of the host and the guests and does not constitute medical advice. The statements contained in this podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA. Any products or treatments mentioned are not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. Cures, Remedies, and Beyond podcast with Dr. Arena is bringing together the science of medicine and the art of healing for ultimate vitality and health.